He tomorrow will be in Harlem at Marcus Garvey Park, I believe. Yeah, I love
Yes.
that place. Let me welcome the one and only Roy Anderson. Hi.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me, Karen.
Thank you. Talking with you, watching the film, understanding, I think everyone listening knows who Marcus Garvey is. We've had Dr. Garvey, Julius Garvey on many times over the years because he's been real consistent in wanting to exonerate his dad's name. In February, there was a push to go to the White House website and upload. And I thought at the time that it was not going to be effective because there's no accountability. There's no way for us
Mhm.
to know how many people actually signed that. So I was like, let's put one more push. Tomorrow's his birthday. Let's do it again. Let's do it again.
Yes.
So I'm going to be putting out a petition tomorrow that a whole lot of people will be participating in. Hashtag Marcus Garvey Day, hashtag free Marcus Garvey. Those are the hashtags. Do not remix, please. Please, let's stick to the hashtag. Let's get that trending early. Y'all could just start doing it now, actually. Hashtag free Marcus Garvey, hashtag Marcus Garvey Day, which is tomorrow. Why is this important? Why would it be important to exonerate and clear his name?
Well, the bottom line is, and thank you for leading the efforts there tomorrow. It's more than a noble effort. So I want to just say thank you on behalf of all our people. Um, there's a mighty stain that's on his record that has to be wiped away. I know a lot of folks will say, let the stain remain just to show, to what great lengths the United States government would go towards maligning somebody. But I think it is important that that stain be removed. And once that stain is removed, it then is in fact an indictment of the folks who try to silence, Marcus Messiah Garvey.
Walk us through. So 1923, 100 years ago, Marcus Garvey had galvanized more than, that was like 6 million Black
Yes.
folk. I mean, I don't know if we can get 6 million Black folk to do much of anything today collectively.
Right.
But he, across the diaspora, was able to motivate people. He even had started a shipping company, and his goal was to be financially independent as a group of Black people globally, and be able to move goods and services throughout the Caribbean, the continent of Africa, the United States, so people could eat, have clothes, and just be self-sufficient. And he got arrested and charged with mail fraud.
Of all things. You know,
Walk
uh,
us through walk us through that indictment.
let me tell you something. The I'm not going to call him famous. The infamous J. Edgar Hoover headed in FBI director, headed in for Marcus Garvey from the moment he stepped off that ship in New York City. From the moment, he saw him as an undesirable alien, and there are documents out there. Don't take my word for it. That Hoover talking stuff like, let's find a way to excommunicate this man from this country because he's undesirable. This is before Marcus Garvey even stepped up onto the stage at 135th and Lenox or wherever else in America, right? He saw the potential of what this man could galvanize. And as you mentioned, he had some 6 million followers around the world, and some would try to downplay that and say, nah, it's not really that. Maybe it was a few thousands or so, but it definitely wasn't in the millions. But fact of the matter is, it was, right? It was. How do you malign a person? By bringing them down. And it was not only J. Edgar Hoover, but there was also a group called Marcus Garvey Must Go. They formed a little campaign, and some famous Americans were part of that group. And I think it would pain my fellow Americans to hear whose name was on that group. So
Well,
they,
I happen to know. I happen to know because I'm in class with Carr quite frequently. But it's often the Judas effect. The best way to undermine someone is using somebody in their own group to do it. I mean, that is the best way. And
exactly.
and to their in their defense, Martin Luther King had a poor approval rating among Black people because Black people were afraid that he was going to make it worse for them, make it more violent, make it more dangerous to be Black in America. And that might be true, right? But that doesn't mean you stop fighting for freedom. And on the side of others, he was an outsider. He was from Jamaica. He was not an American. And here he is in here rallying people around these notions of freedom and things. And he's making it uncomfortable. Maybe he's hurting my bag. Maybe he's hurting my check, my ability to make money, because my job is to keep the Negroes in line, or at least to keep them distracted enough so that business as usual can happen. So, there were some very famous Black people that testified against him.
Preach it.
All right, we're not going to say that they can watch the film to see everybody.
I don't need to call out names. It's just a matter of history.
Yes, it is. So now what do we do with this information? And as you're talking, Roy Anderson is here. He directed and wrote and produced African Redemption, The Life and Legacy of Marcus Garvey. Before we get into it, because I have some fundamental questions, why that title? Why African Redemption?
Well, let me tell you this. Marcus Garvey's life, his entire life was consumed with redeeming Africa. And what do I mean by that? If you look at the stories that come out of Africa, if you look at what mainstream media, so to speak, talk about the continent, it's a dark continent. We need a knight in shining armor to go and save those folks, right? One has to just harken back to the whole, the old Tarzan movies, right? Who's the one that's saving the natives? Right? Speaking with one of my subjects, Lou Gossett Jr., the eminent Lou Gossett Jr., he told me that when he visited one of the countries, in Africa, he had like the head of state, her wife wanted to dress like one of the Hollywood starlet because, that's what they were emulating, right? So Marcus Garvey just wanted to set out to just say, hey, listen, Africa is this continent that you can be proud of. Matter of fact, he said this is where civilization began, and I'm not going to question him, right? A lot of people will. Fact of the matter is, a lot of great things came out of that, and he encouraged folks to embrace their Africanness. He said the Black skin is not a badge of shame, but yet to this day, we have folks, I'm sorry to say, in my native Jamaica, who are bleaching their skin. Why? They're rejecting their Africanness, their Blackness. This is exactly what Marcus Garvey preached against, right? And so, of course, he's going to make some people uncomfortable. You're messing with their checkbook, right?
So let me ask you this. Why, Roy, why is it messing with their checkbook? Roy Anderson is here. The number is 866-801-8255. Y'all can start tweeting out Free Marcus Garvey right now. Tomorrow is Marcus Garvey Day. We'll add that hashtag tomorrow, which is his birthday. He was born August 17th, 1887 in St. Ann's Bay, Jamaica. I'm often like thinking, why is that a problem that people want people to be free, to be knowledgeable? Why is that such a scary thing that you want to destroy a person or kill a person or get rid of a person, eradicate this person from the earth? Why is that such a threat, Roy Anderson?
Well, let me tell you something. I often say, and to whoever will listen to me, that I feel sorry for Black folks in America. They did a number on them. They wanted to be anything that reminded them of their beloved Africa, whether it's their culture, whether it's their cuisine, whatever it is, they wanted to just beat that out of them and just assimilate into this, what do you call it, this North American psyche, right? And up steps Marcus Garvey and say, hey, listen, no. You are a new Negro, all right? When you're walking down the sidewalk, doesn't matter if it's Chicago, New York, or whatever, no need to hold your head down. If you see someone that don't look like you, put your chest up in the air, look at them. You're just as equal, if not better than them. And some people had a problem with that. I can't believe that some folks had a problem with it. But Marcus Garvey, that's why he was able to attract the masses. They gathered at his feet at 135th and Lenox and wherever else he preached all over America. They flocked to him. he was dangerous in the eyes of certain individuals.
When you think about "Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud," Marcus Garvey said it first.
Yes,
866-801-8255. Where are your peoples from? Where are you from, Roy Anderson?
I'm from Jamaica, actually, Jamaica by way of Africa, if that
Okay.
makes sense, right?
And growing up in Jamaica,
Hmm.
what were you taught about Marcus Garvey?
Not a whole lot, not a
See,
whole lot, not a whole lot.
so when did you run into him? It's I was just talking to a caller who's from Guyana, didn't learn about the colonization in school of, with the Dutch and then didn't learn any of that history and Africans being brought there to build that economy. Didn't learn any of that history, but it would make you question, like, why do I look like these people who look like these people who look like, but we might speak a different language, but why do I look like this? What happened here? You didn't learn that in school about Marcus Garvey and all of the things that he was about?
Sadly, no. Sadly, no. And there are people who are still lamenting the fact that there's not enough of a focus on civics, on our history in the textbook, right? So you'll learn a lot about European history, history that's not our history. And as I said, it sounded like a broken record, but people are lamenting the fact, right? I completed 2 documentaries previous to this on the Maroons of Jamaica. And for the listeners who don't know who the Maroons are, these were enslaved Africans who decided that they had enough of being on the plantation. So they fled to the hills, to the hinterland, to set up their own communities in these inhospitable regions. So it led to an 85-year struggle between the British from 1655 to 1738. The British were not able to defeat these mighty Maroons. So they had to sit across the table from their former, as they call them, slaves, and hash out the details of a treaty, which some would say gave them their freedom. No. I would say they were able to maintain their freedom. It's just another way of writing down what the status quo was, right? And the Maroons, they were able to inspire folks like Toussaint Louverture in Haiti, because they came before the Haitian Revolution. They inspired folks in America, Harriet Tubman, all these other folks. You had the Black Seminoles, you had a Maroon community here in America. And can I also say that Marcus Garvey comes from that stock, Maroon stock. He is a Maroon. So naturally, the recurring themes of my documentary is resistance. So I was naturally attracted to this subject.
All right, I'm going to pause you and everyone because I think language has to be pristine. We will not refer to people who were in bondage as slaves. They were enslaved. We will never call people of good stock because that's how you categorize livestock and cattle and animals. We were not animals. We were human beings. And we have royalty inside our DNA. Yes, he comes from those folk that resisted. As when I did my African ancestry, I come from Sierra Leone and from Liberia, people who were liberators, people who were on that Amistad. I know that, but that is part of our DNA and that's our heritage. It's not stock. We weren't,
Yes.
We were bred. Yes, many of us were bred. Many of our ancestors were bred, but we're not cattle. And I think, we just say these things because it's been ingrained in us to call people slaves and come from good stock and we come from all, it's like it's a source of pride, but what are we saying?
And that's what Marcus Garvey was trying to purge out of the minds of these folks. He said, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free the mind.
Mm. You didn't tell me. So you bumped into Marcus Garvey in doing the 2 documentaries, Roy, or did you bump into him before? When was the first time you met Marcus Garvey?
I would say his son, Julius Garvey, introduced me to his father because he had seen one of my previous documentaries. And so he approached me in 2013 and asked me if I'd be willing to collaborate with him on a story of his father, because obviously in 2014 was the 100-year anniversary of the forming of the UNIA. And I looked at myself and I'm saying, is this man asking me to collaborate on such a momentous project? I was floored, but I had to
Wow.
say no. But I had to say no. And you
Wait,
know
so you
why?
turned him down? No,
You
please
know
tell me.
why? I was working on another project. This is I was finishing Queen Nanny, legendary Maroon chieftainess, the great Nanny of the Maroons, who led those enslaved Africans in the hills and defeated the mighty British Empire. So I said to Dr. Garvey, when I do something, people who know me, I like to give it my whole 100%. And I think I said, I don't think it would be fair. It wouldn't be justice. It wouldn't do justice to have me part way, trying to tell a story of a great man like your father. And I said, absolutely, I wish you well. I want to see this movie. But believe it or not, as luck would have it, we connected a couple of years later and laid the foundation for African Redemption, the life and legacy of Marcus Garvey. So big props to Dr. Garvey.
Well, it was supposed to be your project to do. We're talking with filmmaker, documentarian Roy T. Anderson. Tomorrow is the debut of African Redemption, the life and legacy of Marcus Garvey. If you're in New York, you can make your way up to Harlem. You're going to be doing a special screening tomorrow night in Marcus Garvey Park.
Marcus Garvey Park in the Mecca, Harlem, USA, baby.
Roy T. Anderson, tell us something about Marcus Garvey that you learned during the 8 months of research that nobody would know except for this film.
Well, I mean, I knew about the whole Bob Marley and Redemption song, but I didn't know the depths of it until I actually visited that place, that Menelik Hall in Sydney, Nova Scotia, where he gave that famous speech in 1939, and then it really hit home. I read the words, and I don't think enough people, because Bob Marley himself emulated, Marcus Garvey, but not enough folks give this man credit for what he did, right? So that's one. Number two, the meeting with the Klan, I kind of peripherally heard about it, but then when I dug deep into it, I had to ask myself, man, this guy had the gall, the gumption to just like puff his chest up and just walk into the office of this man. I believe he was the head of the Ku Klux Klan at that time. Clark. Couldn't believe it. So many, and there's just so many other stories, but I really don't want to give it away. I want people to watch the film. And just for clarification, the film won't be commercially available starting tomorrow, but it's going to be available on an educational platform for all educators around the world to be able to stream the film. If a school wants it, they can go to the platform and stream it. It's Alexander Street. So as of tomorrow, the film will be available for educators, and there'll be a link on our website, garveythemovie.com, with that information. So first we want to do, the educational distribution, and then the commercial exploitation will follow. I'm sure it's going to find a home in due course.
Yes. I mean, and that's the least we could do in this CRT era that we're in, to find ways for educators to get information to young people. We were talking about that at the top of the show.